Let's talk about battle items in Pokemon Unite. Now fortunately, there's not very many of them and only 4 are viable, so we might actually have a video under 30 minutes this time. So let's just get straight into it and talk about Eject Button. Also, if you enjoy the video, don't forget to leave a like, share with your friends, comment your thoughts down below. Eject Button is just an A tier item. It's not S tier, and it needs the strong consideration to not be immediately defaulted when playing the game. A lot of people, they're carrying ideas over from other MOBAs. They're coming from League of Legends, where Flash is pretty much a 100% pick. So just like, yo, Eject Button, mobility, insta-blink, yeah, I'm just gonna pick this. I'm just gonna consider it the best thing because that's how it is in other games, not in Pokemon Unite. There is so much extra mobility and crowd control in Pokemon Unite, and also the team fights, like, they could just happen instantly to the point where it's like, oh, Eject Button doesn't really give you any kind of value inside of fights, to where it's like, yeah, it's not a heavy consideration. It's still good just because of the way that mobility works, but it's not like the best option. I would actually put it A-, but putting something like Flash a B tier is blasphemous no matter what the game. So yeah, it's like, it's not as great as people are making it. It's just a good battle item, but there's a lot of Pokemon that do way better with other battle items, so that's going to be the strong consideration that we take into it, especially after the nerf. I consider Eject Button okay before the nerf, but then the cooldown duration got increased, which also brings me to another point. If you are flashing the wall as a jungle, don't. People get mad when I call other people idiots, but that is an actual idiot low IQ play. Like, I don't understand the lack of critical thinking skills that someone has to have to go, yo, I'm gonna flash this wall and then I'm not gonna have it up for my first gank. It doesn't even increase your clear speed that much because you're sitting around waiting for the Ludicolo spawn anyways, and if you have to walk around, it might take an extra second for it to spawn, and then you're going to be sitting around waiting for the enemy jungle to show up or for Vespiquen anyways, so the only thing you're doing is hurting yourself because you think you're smart by having this cool tech. So it's really just edginess creating stupidity, and I wanted to get that rant out of the way, but I feel it's going to be easier to talk about why Eject Button isn't that good. We talk about how good the other items are, and that brings us to Fluffy Tail. So yeah, we're just going alphabetical order. It's not like top to bottom tier list or anything. Fluffy Tail. Dreadnaught's the game. Zapdos is the game. Getting an advantage in lane is starting to get more and more important as people just kind of like eke out those little advantages and really run away with the game. Also, securing a creep does give you a little bit of health, so it can bolster that fight. If everyone's just kind of like skirmishing on top of the center Audino or center Corphish, those little stats actually end up mattering. Or if someone comes into like the Vespiquen at level 4 versus level 3, then that's just going to be crazy snowballing from there. So Fluffy Tail is good in lane, it's good on a jungle, it's good to just make sure you get that Dreadnought, to make sure you don't throw the game at Zapdos or have that steal potential against the enemy Zapdos, and just a really good item. Now, I don't consider it like 100% pick, but there are some Pokemon that really get to abuse the item, like Gengar, because Gengar comes in with the Hex-boosted Fluffy Tail, and nothing can out-damage that on the Dreadnought or the Zapdos. So it's really uncontestable as long as Gengar is getting the perfect... It's stronger than Smite in League of Legends to have like a Fluffy Tail, boosted Hex, and also some other like very high damage burst Pokemon. Talonflame comes in, sets it up on the fly, and yeah, you can't really do anything about it. Now people are going to say, yo, Fluffy Tail is so good on Crustle. No, it's not. That Stealth Rocks is trolling. You should never be picking Stealth Rocks on Crustle if you expect to win any games. It's just a really bad move. So it's like, yeah, oh, you sit the Stealth Rocks on an objective or a Pokemon, then you Fluffy Tail and you take the damage. Even like the last tick on Stealth Rocks, it's not that insane. It's also really easy to miss time. It's also really easy. Like, you don't have autonomy on when that last hit is happening, because like you can't predict what's going to happen a couple seconds out like that. So you need to use it as like a crazy burst item. But overall, it's like, yeah, Fluffy Tail. It has some strong consideration on some Pokemon, and even laners. Like, I really like Mr. Mime with Fluffy Tail, mostly because I can't really figure out too many other items that Mr. Mime gets a lot of value out of. However, like, Fluffy Tail into Fake Out, that's Audino. Like, you secure Center Audino super easily, and then when you have, like, Confusion into Barrier or Confusion into Guard Swap, you have crazy amounts of damage, and then that Fluffy Tail means you have the secure as well. So, very strong item. I consider it A tier, and I consider it like, hey, instead of just defaulting to Eject Button, make sure you don't need the Fluffy Tail first. And then that brings us to Full Heal, which is the best battle item in the game. It is S tier. This is the item that needs the strongest consideration when you are playing Pokemon Unite, because, like I said, there is so much mobility and crowd control in the game that the amount of unstoppability you have from the Full Heal provides more value in like maneuvering through team fights or even escaping than Eject Button. Like, here's what happens in most fights. You Eject Button away, and then they catch up to you. Or you're already, like, slowed, or you immediately get crowd controlled from something like a Pikachu or Ninetales still hitting you from, like, a screen away, and then you get caught and blown up anyways. Also, like, Talonflame doesn't want an Eject Button because it's going all in on the fly, and it's attacking potentially a ranged Pokemon in melee, so if it Eject Button's away, it's still in range. So you're still going to get hit by abilities, crowd control or something. Like, it doesn't give you the repositioning. Lucario gets a million extreme speed resets. Zeraora gets a ton of spark dashes. Also, even though you shouldn't be running Volt Switch, if you prefer it, it still gives like a lot of distance and a lot of maneuverability on the Volt Switch. So like the Eject Button just doesn't pan out in the stats. If you're just defaulting it, like you're trying to compare Flash's usability in other games compared to Pokemon Unite, which is something completely different. It just doesn't translate that well, whereas with Full Heal, it also gives you the autonomy on an engage. Like, my favorite thing to do on Cramorant is pop Full Heal and then run at them and make sure I get my guaranteed Hurricane setup as well as my guaranteed Surf setup, and if I'm popping Full Heal, it means I'm not going to accidentally get knocked out of my Unite move while it's casting, so it's like Full Heal, Unite move's guaranteed, done. Same thing with Extreme Speed Lucario. I go in with the Extreme Speed on Lucario, I use Full Heal, they can't stop me from my next couple of Extreme Speeds, and then also a lot of wild things happen because when you use Full Heal to eat crowd control, their abilities go on cooldown. They don't have it, so you're getting kind of an effective more than just 2.5 seconds of unstoppability, where it's like, oh, well, now if they don't have their stunning ability anymore for the next 5 seconds or something, they don't get to use it, and they don't get any value out of that, and I just get to eat it, and now I get to blow them up because it's my time to shine. I have autonomy in the fight. So I don't think Eject Button gives you as much autonomy, it doesn't give you as much escapability or positioning inside of fights, whereas Full Heal, you use it, and then you're free to do whatever you want, which has way more value. Also, it does depend on the meta. Wigglytuff is getting a lot of picks right now, so what you do is you use Full Heal, you negate the charm, you ignore the Sing, and then now you're able to run through Wigglytuff to the back line and do whatever you want to the enemy team. So you can also get rid of support Pokemon. Mr. Mime, it's like, oh, Mr. Mime's gonna Barrier Confusion me. Full Heal. No, now it doesn't get its insane burst, and now it doesn't have any abilities against you for like 7 seconds or something. So you're just free to do whatever you want, and that has incredible amounts of value, and people need to wake up to that. Unstoppability is probably the strongest thing in the game. After that, we have Goal Getter. F-tier item, do not use it, never use it. It's 100% trolling, not just because of the items that you're giving up in place of it, but also because scoring doesn't matter. It's as weird as it sounds, as counterintuitive as it is. Zapdos is the game. Dreadnought is the game. If you're on the top side of the map trying to score instead of helping your team at the 5v5 in Dreadnought, you're throwing, you're trolling. If you have, it's pretty much the same reason for Scorch Shield. It doesn't give you any value in the game. And it's also not a guarantee. Also, this cooldown is ridiculous in a 10-minute game, so you only get a couple of uses, and there's no guarantee like you're getting it on cooldown every single time. And even if you get like the 1 in 15 games where you're trying to backdoor with the Goal Getter to counterscore Zapdos, congratulations, you got 100 points, they got 400 because of Zapdos, you still lose. Same idea with Score Shield. Oh man, you're trying to like get those scores off and you're trying to get those points, and oh man, it just barely clutches out, doesn't matter. But at the same time, it's also not a guarantee. Goal Getter isn't going to guarantee you any more points. Score Shield isn't going to guarantee you any more points. All it does is hinder you by giving you less stats inside the fights that matter at Dreadnought and Zapdos. Also potentially Rotom for like comeback experience or also snowballing secure. And if you're playing around Dreadnought and Zapdos, instead of using Score Shield to get a cheeky score that doesn't matter in the mid to late game, well, you should have just been playing around Dreadnought and Zapdos and then win the game off of that. Like, it's also really weird because if you get Zapdos, you instantly score. So people, they'll be like trying to set up a backdoor while their team is trying to take Zapdos, and even if their team does get in the 4v5, which shouldn't happen. Like, that doesn't mean it's like, oh man, see, I set up for my team with the Score Shield Goal Getter because they still got Zapdos. No, that means you got incredibly lucky to make that happen, but if you were there getting Zapdos, you just instantly score anyway, so the Goal Getter Score Shield has 0 value. So it either creates an unhealthy mentality that throws the game, doesn't matter because, okay, if you're the only one up top and then all 5 enemies are down bot for Dreadnought or at Zapdos, well, you didn't need the Score Shield to protect from the score. It can still get blown up, so it's not guaranteed anyways. And then, if it's used to, like, counterscore after the Zapdos, you probably already put your team behind by ignoring objectives and getting, like, 30 piss points that don't matter anyways. And then, it's too little, too late, and just never enough, while also putting you at a disadvantage. Don't run any of those items. Awful. If Dreadnought gets nerfed, if Zapdos gets nerfed, maybe that means Talonflame's going to get stronger, Absol gets stronger, split pushing might become a thing, splitting the map also has like its own weird viability, but then the problem is just the launch pad. The launch pad at 5 minutes makes it where you can't even break into the second goal that reliably. Like, even if you, like, take out an entire team, they just respawn and then you get back in it. Even with the goal getter, it sometimes doesn't even speed it up. So again, it's not a guarantee, doesn't give you all the value that you expect, it doesn't create the plays that you think are being created, it's just objectively bad, and especially with the score shield. After that, we have Potion. So 15% max hit point restoration is decent, but everything else is just too good. Now, I consider it a B tier item because I think there is some very niche specific usage on the potion. Like if you're Chansey and then you use it to get 15% of your max hit points back, and then that lets you survive long enough to get like an extra usage of soft boiled, well, now you're actually getting more health and then you're providing more support to the team. On certain tanks, if you just like eat that extra 15% while having high defenses or something, it's like, oh, you did a good job soaking damage and then soaking extra damage. And on a lot of Pokemon, it's like, yeah, the flash doesn't really get you anything. The full heal is cool and all, but if you're just tanky enough to eat CC and then heal it off anyways, it's like, all right, you can just kind of do whatever. Also, Chansey, even with the safeguard, it's going to prevent CC. Your ability prevents CC, so you can just kind of do whatever, and then maybe the potion works. I'm not saying like, oh, Chansey needs to use potion, but I think there are some like weird strategies where this does become a thing. And also keep an eye out, like if potion gets buffed, then maybe other Pokemon like Garchomp, where it's like, oh, Garchomp's about to die. Nah, it gets 20% of its health back, and then gets an auto attack proc on the heal. Focus Band starts kicking in, and the one opportunity you had to burst down Garchomp goes away, and then survives. Another interesting thing about Potion is that if you use it before Focus Band activates, Focus Band is still going to count the damage that you got like from healing and other sources. So you're actually getting more Focus Band effectiveness by using the potion before it pops, and then if you're getting extra heals because of that, because it's keeping you healthier, it creates like a lot of weird interactions. So maybe even in its current state, some very specific Focus Band Garchomp play, because like with Garchomp, you're either running full heal or X attack, the flash doesn't really do too much for you, especially now that Razor Claw is going to slay your enemies and keep them there. Razor Claw, Focus Band, Potion, Garchomp, maybe. Which also means like, see, there's cases for Potion, which means it's not like an F tier never use item, but it's like B tier, but it's like not really viable still. The 4 battle items I consider viable are Full Heal, Eject Button, Fluffy Tail, and X Attack, which brings us to Slow Smoke. I'm just gonna roll with it because of alphabetical. But yeah, Slow Smoke, I've tried it on multiple different Pokemon. Like, yo, Mr. Mime gets in there and then slows them, and then that lets you set up like extra barriers or just kind of like holds them in place. It's not good enough. Like the 1 second duration just like immediately wears off. And there's so much crowd control, there's so much mobility in the game that the Slow Smoke just doesn't matter. It doesn't work long enough. Now, if Slow Smoke had like 3 seconds of just creating a zone of crowd control, then like that becomes an A tier item. But as it stands right now, it's like B-, C+. I would rather just walk into an enemy with Potion than try to set up something on Slow Smoke where they just immediately walk out of it and you get no benefit whatsoever. So it's like, it's cool, even in like support Pokemon, it just doesn't set up enough, and other Pokemon that already have crowd control, it doesn't make the crowd control more potent, it just kind of becomes lesser crowd control that ends up not mattering because your other abilities are so strong, and then other Pokemon just like get out of it through mobility and stuff. So yeah, Slow Smoke, C tier item, doesn't really do anything. Could be cool, but it just doesn't combo, and we're gonna have to keep an eye out on it on like some kind of buff, but it needs like a massive duration thing to where it's like, oh, now for most of the fight, that Slow Smoke becomes impactful, but until then, nah. X Attack, this is a really good item, but not on casters. The way that special attack scaling works in this game makes it to where that the scaling isn't really that great. So if we just like click on a Pokemon, Pikachu has 66% special attack on the Electro Ball and 77% when it gets upgraded. It doesn't really matter too much. Same thing on like Thunderbolt, where it's like, oh, it's a cool hit, but only 50% special attack. So if we look at Pikachu's stats, and then we go into like level 10, 500-ish with items, all right, 500 is going to be getting 20% special attack. So you're getting 100 special attack, and then on like 50 scaling, 60 scaling, some Pokemon have 100 scaling, it's only getting 100 damage, whereas if we also look at the stats, Pokemon are going to have 4 to 5 to 7,000 health at level 10, so you're doing 1 to 200 more damage on all that health. There's no value there for special attackers. However, Physical attackers, they generally have good attack scaling, but also if they're getting basic attacks, that's just flat 20% basic attack damage because your attack is being factored in for your basic attacks. The 7-second duration is also really nice, and it happens for pretty much an entire fight, and the X attack is just going to be flat stats for securing or taking Dreadnought. So Zeraora, Lucario, Garchomp, popping that X attack, and then just like farming up on the Dreadnought or the Zapdos, or like winning the team fight and then still getting some secure potential or something. Also, maybe steal prevention. Not as good as Fluffy Tail, but it's like the stats just work everywhere. It works in the jungle, it works in lane, it also works in fights, so you're just going to be strong. However, like I said, some special attackers have issue. Now, Pokemon like Gengar, because they are getting multiple Hex uses, like if you go X attack into Gengar, now that matters. Potentially Gardevoir. I feel Gardevoir is so frail that you really want to have the full heal or the eject button, so that way you can just keep people off you. But again, like eject button means if someone jumps on you like a Lucario and you flash away, they're just going to catch up. Same thing with Zeraora. The full heal means like you at least get to reposition and start focusing more on abilities. But that comes down to individual Pokemon. If you want to know the best battle item for each Pokemon, this isn't that video. I'm just making guides and eventually you'll piece it together. But as it stands right now, I'm just kind of like breaking down the best items and the considerations and how it needs to play out. Also, experimentation. You know, try different battle items for multiple games and then see which works best for both your playstyle, because it's not a completely binary thing, and also how that Pokemon interacts with consideration for the meta. That right now, Gengar needs to go full heal to blind pick into that Wigglytuff or into the Blastoise or other like high crowd control Pokemon. But if those Pokemon start to drop off and like Wigglytuff is like gets nerfed or something, is almost in no games, yeah, then the X attack on the Gengar becomes viable. So there's other things to consider like that. Pretty much my biggest thing about this video is don't default eject button. Use eject button last. Use eject button when no other items work. That's the mentality that players should be having. And then that brings us to X speed, which I feel is just a bad item. It's like D tier, it's C tier, it doesn't really work. Like maybe one or two weird strategies that I can't think of. Like Talonflame doesn't want X speed. Talonflame wants to use X attack and then just dive in and try to destroy as many people before it gets inted. Mr. Mime, I don't think Mr. Mime can run around and position the X speed as well as people try to make out on it, especially with like the guard swap or something. Like you just don't get the speed value. You don't get the mobility that you would expect. It feels like eject button makes you safer. It feels like full heal. You cover more ground on a full heal because you have that immunity for just long enough to get out of the way, and if you get stunned while X speed is in use, well, you're still stunned, and then now you're getting closed on anyways. It just doesn't feel like it doesn't give you enough distance. It doesn't make you fast enough. And I think that's also by design because it's a mobile MOBA, so like switch controls, mobile controls, if Pokemon just get too fast, they become uncounterably impossible to hit. And if like X speed was like double your speed for 5 seconds or even 4 seconds, that would be way too much, way too ridiculous, and then the Pokemon's effectively invincible while it has X speed up. So it doesn't have enough usable stats because it really can't have enough usable stats. And even on Pokemon like Garchomp, where you want to stick to the opponents, it doesn't let you stick. It just doesn't work. Like you just don't, like if you pop it, it doesn't feel like you move 30% faster. You just go slightly faster, but it's still not enough. And I think that's going to be it for the video. So eject button A-, Fluffy Tail A, full heal S, goal getter F tier, E tier, troll T tier for troll, potions B tier, blow smoke X speed C tier, X attack A tier. Good luck, have fun.